Welcome to the Music Marketing Podcast. Today we're joined by Chelsea Wood from VDM Music Management. Hi, how's it going?
Hi, thanks for having us.
You're welcome. You got another Geordie here.
Yes, fellow Geordies, I know.
Alex loves it. Finally, someone.
Everyone thinks I'm Welsh, though. I don't know if you get that, but everyone thinks I'm from Wales.
I would not have guessed you were a Geordie.
No.
Definitely not.
I even thought you were from Wales on the phone. You hung up and I was
Really?
like, she's from Wales.
But people from the south don't know what the accent is.
No, I've had Scottish quite a lot and Irish. Not so much Welsh, but you
That's a
know.
first.
Okay.
we're all
Anyway,
the
do you want to
same.
introduce yourself, like what you do, who you work with, just so the audience know?
Yeah, of course. So I work in music management. As you mentioned, it's for a company called VDM Music. So we have quite a small boutique roster, I would say. So it's just myself and another Geordie, another woman called Vicky Dowdle, the CEO. And we have an artist called Nina Nesbitt, who this year has surpassed 500 million streams on the last record, which is fantastic. We've had a lot of success with her. And just before lockdown, we took on an artist called Foxes, who won a Grammy with the song Clarity that she did with Zed. And we have two really fantastic songwriters, Olivia Sebastianelli and a guy called Robbie J. So on the management side, that is our little boutique unit, and we have other things going on, a record label and other artists, which I can go into that a little later.
Cool. So how did it all happen for you? How did you get into music management? Was it the plan from day one, or did you sort of fall in love with music along the way?
I mean, we're all in this industry because we love music, so that's been something from when I was very young. But I did a real DIY, like as hard as physically possible. How can I get there? So I was at university doing a law degree and was just like, I can't sit behind a desk all day, every day, 9 to 5. So I did what my parents wanted us to do, and I graduated and got that degree. But I knew I wasn't going to pursue that, full time. And I just basically went off and travelled America for 3 months, just that I need to do something really random. I did this ridiculously hard 3 months in America where I went around national parks and was up at 4 a.m. and doing all this crazy manual labour. And I got back and I was just like, you know what? If I can do something like that where I didn't know anybody, I just went out on my own, joined a scheme and did this whole thing. I was like, I'm going to do what I genuinely want to do now, which is pursue music. And I came back to South Shields, this little town outside of Newcastle where there's barely any music. And I went back to a performing arts group that I used to be part of. And I came across a band, like very quickly, funnily enough. There was like 4 guys, like guitars, drums, kind of McFly, like Busted sort of thing. And at the time that was, this is going back like 9-10 years ago now, so it was quite a big thing. And they were so good, but absolutely useless at doing anything. So I was like, you rehearse twice a week? Yeah. Do you play any gigs? Oh, no. So I was like, okay, well, how about I try and get you some gigs? And it was really quite natural. Like, they needed gigs and then they needed money. So I would get them, paid gigs in pubs. Then, they had no social media. So I got them on there and got, a logo, the branding, and very naturally just sort of found this band, fell in love with them, and they like desperately needed someone for some guidance. And it's interesting because I knew, honestly, zero about the music industry. Like, I can talk, I can email, I can do all of these things, but I didn't have any experience, no backstory whatsoever. And at the time, people would be like, that's not going to be a career. Like, are you serious? That's not going to be a thing. And it just sort of went from there. I worked full-time jobs whilst looking after the band because, it doesn't pay any money in the early days. And we went from strength to strength for about 2.5 years. And they eventually supported like Ed Sheeran in the arena at Newcastle. And then they'd play to like 30,000 people supporting Busted. And, live was a huge thing, but huge thing back then. That was how you marketed things the most. And then I got noticed by a management company in Newcastle who, a fantastic guy called Eric Cook, and he had a recording studio up north as well. And he needed a recording studio manager and an artist manager. And obviously the coolest job I'm ever going to have is a recording studio manager, right? So I'm like, I'm there, I'm in. Started working for him. Total change of pace. He had very different clients to me. I still had the band, the pop rock band. He had like Andy Taylor from Duran Duran, so like old school stuff, and a classical artist who had won a classical Brit, a guy called Tolga Kashif. So that was a very big eye opener for me to jump from like one artist, just full time like pursuing that, to actually come and work with me. I will pay you to do your dream job and you'll look after more clients. And I mean, it's the best feeling ever. It might be the best moment of my life when someone went, I will pay you to work in music. Oh, my days. I had a really great sort of, I think it was another 2.5, 3 years with Eric. He very unfortunately passed away quite suddenly. That was a big kind of scary time in life when you've gone, in this dream career and you don't know what's going to happen. And I, funnily enough, in that job, met Vicky Dowdle, who runs VDM Music, and horrendous situation, but I kind of believe that timing is a big thing in everybody's life. And I met her at what happened to be the right time. And Nina Nesbitt was going into campaign and she really needed someone to basically do all of the day-to-day management on that. And that is the short-ish version of how I ended up at VDM Music.
Go on, tell us what the day-to-day management is for an artist at your management company.
I think some people don't even know what a manager does.
Yeah.
Especially as for Nina Nesbitt as well. We mention her in our content all of the time. People who will have watched our videos. She is the best example for us of someone who's creating content and is spreading their name before the music a lot of the time as well. So I will, hands up, admit, I discovered Nina Nesbitt's Instagram, I think, before the music.
Yeah.
Purely through word of mouth. But that is why we were so excited to have you on the podcast. So what in the day-to-day do you do in a management company?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of touch on the Nina thing specifically later because she is amazing at that side. But day-to-day management in a nutshell is honestly a little bit of everything. And I think that is why, for me, management was always going to be the area I went into. I had thought about some of these sort of internships at the labels and anything to get to London basically at the time, and then fell into this role, which is amazing. But the way I try and describe day-to-day management is if you have an artist and then that artist has a manager. Now, everything else above that, generally speaking, an artist will have a record label, a publisher, a live agent, a press team, radio teams, and various other people. Your artist, 9 times out of 10, will speak to you and ask you questions about every one of those people. They don't go to the radio plugger directly sometimes, but, you have to know enough about all those little areas so that when someone like Nina picks up the phone and says, well, who is this person in radio, or what is the press I'm doing today? And you just have to be able to handle a little bit of everything because you are that direct point of contact between the artist and every other person of their team. So it sounds a bit daunting, but it is just, handling, it can be anything from joining them on promo, some, not in 2020, but on a normal day, I might be out on a photo shoot or a video shoot, you're catching up on your emails in between always. You might be at a live gig. So, I've actually done some tour managing as part of this role, and you just dip in and out where needed. And that's kind of the top bottom of it.
Yeah.
It is, but that's what keeps it fresh. And that is exactly why I didn't want to sit behind a desk. This is like my dream thing,
Nice. So when an artist, like you take on an artist, is it at like ground level, or do they have to have some sort of a audience already? Like obviously Nina's got a massive audience, but some other artists you've worked with, would you take them on like a ground level? Do you think people at a ground level need management?
That's a very interesting question, actually. So we do develop artists.
Okay.
So in 2020, we actually started our own independent record label called Truth Records. That's an affiliation with Crown, the company who look after like Ella Henderson. Back in the day, they had Jessie J and a bunch of other people. And we're doing that with the guys at Crown. They're fantastic. And the main reason we're doing that is to develop brand new artists. It is very hard for people to get up and running and get the support they need. However, the one thing I will say is we get a ton of management requests every week, and I do listen to everything that comes in. But because a lot of artists will do the DIY thing, so, like Nina when she started, she did everything on her own, off her own back. She put, at the time, YouTube was a huge platform, still is, but a lot more prominent for discovery back then. She would put all of our covers on YouTube. She would respond to all of her fans. She would do all of these things that it got her to a stage where when it came for a time to have a manager, she'd put herself in that position. So I would say to someone, if you've got great songs, but you're sitting at home and you're not playing them live, like my first band did, you're not going to get put on the radar of anybody. So you do have to have that intuition and the get up and go and, research things online. And that is, where Nina's great because she's so switched on to, she's of that era of being online basically, and her fans are as well. But she's been going for probably about the same amount of time I've been in music, coming up like 10 years. She so easily could have fallen off in that time because the industry changes so much and social media changes so much. So it's just about switching on to people and the platforms and growing as they do. And if you're present in everything in all of those moments, when your time comes along to meet a manager or, a lawyer, as it so much can be, or a publisher, if you're there and you've been doing it all, you're going to meet the right people.
Do you feel with Nina it's natural? Or do you think it's planned in that she thinks about, like, say she's big on TikTok right now and she thinks about that algorithm, what people want? You say back on YouTube, she kind of grew an audience on there. Did it come naturally, or is she someone who consciously thinks of those platforms?
Well, I mean, back in the day when she first started, she's kind of similar to me in that she's from this town, smaller than where I'm from, actually, very small. She had nothing else, her only outlet was YouTube, and she'll always describe it as she actually put her videos on YouTube and didn't tell anybody because she was like, well, if they're absolutely rubbish, then, maybe nobody in the town will see them. And that was her way of getting out there. And I think that was the only option at the time. Whereas now, of course, it's not. But TikTok is something that she wasn't very engaged with before lockdown. And as so many other people did, got engaged on the platform. And she was out of campaign. She was actually writing the next record when lockdown hit. So it gave her an opportunity to sit back and think, I can either sit now for 6 months and do nothing and stress about it, or I can try and do something to keep my fans engaged. So yeah, there's definitely been a thought process there. But when she started on TikTok, we had no idea what the algorithm meant, not as clued up about it at the time. She didn't know what would react. She didn't know what her fans would want to see. And all she actually did know was she was not going to be that person that did those little dances. And there's nothing wrong with that because influencers make a fantastic living doing those things. But as a musician, I do believe the music should still come first, And she just started uploading, funnily enough, like breakdown production videos, I would call them. So she'd take one of her singles, something like The Best You Had. Then she would go and sample sounds around London, which did make her look absolutely crazy. She was like hitting twigs off trees and like filming herself, and people thought she was a bit crazy. But then she'd come home and make a sample pack out of those things, and then on TikTok bring it all together and say, this is how I've reproduced my track. So it was clever for TikTok, it fulfilled their algorithm, and it was music based. And that's a really good example of what can I do to still be me on a platform that doesn't necessarily fully support musicians. It's for a lot of different types of people. And then as it turned out, the videos reacted very well, and TikTok, we now have a great relationship with the guys there. They're very supportive with us, and now I understand how the algorithm works a bit more, and we can now, as you said, sit down and plan and say, well, we know this worked well, so what can we do with a future track, or what can we plan for the next record? And you kind of got to wing it at the start, I would say. But if you switched on a little bit and you know your fans or what you love, then if you're putting content out you love, I just don't think you can go wrong,
Do you think an artist has to be able to do that sort of stuff now?
I think a lot of artists will hate to hear us say this.
Yeah.
I do think you have to be engaged with platforms, and I'm very aware that not all artists are comfortable doing that. It's, I guess, a scary world to sit in front of a camera and do all of these things and put it out there.
Yeah.
But that now is the main place people are finding all of their content. Even from 10 years ago, before Spotify and all of these things, people can have content now on demand at any time. So you release an album and fans want another album the week later. There's no such thing as this 2 to 3 year gap going off and writing this album anymore. So the best way to engage with people whilst you're trying to come up with the next record and things are these platforms. And you just don't know where something is going to take off. So I think, you can be engaged on YouTube, for example, but if you're not engaged on Instagram, what if your moment was happening on Instagram? What if that hashtag you used on YouTube was actually something that was trending on Instagram and you missed that opportunity? So the volume of platforms, I would agree, is quite overwhelming because there's so many of them, and some of them have a moment in time rather than, hanging about. But I do think your main platforms you need to be on.
Would you say be on all of them or pick one and just focus on one? How would you go about it?
Well, we tend to find our artists definitely have a platform that they're most comfortable with. But the beauty now is cross-posting is such a common thing. And, back when I started, they used to kind of suggest have different content on different platforms. And now I do feel like that's changed. If you've got an Instagram story, you can cross-post that onto Facebook now very easily because they're linked. And whilst kind of the inner social side of me would say having different content will reach different types of fans, of course, in this day and age, when as an artist you have to do so much more than you probably had to, back then, you haven't really got time to sit and plan out different content for all these different platforms, then go on and comment and reply everyone individually necessarily. So I think, Nina's main platform is still Instagram. TikTok is definitely hugely growing, but all that content can go on both. And, Instagram have just started Reels now, which is very similar to TikTok. And the beauty of that is the platforms compete with each other. So the content, generally speaking, translates.
How are people discovering her on Instagram? How's it growing? Is it through like mainly just word of mouth? Is it like the discover page, hashtags? How are you finding the where the followers are coming from?
I think it's a big mix of all of those things. Her discovery in lockdown's been interesting because honestly, the kind of humour side of her personality has been what has switched a lot of new fans onto her. So, if you're a fan of Nina Nesbitt, you're going to hear the music. It's going to be fed to you in several different ways. But if you're not, then she isn't going to come on your newsfeed if the only thing she's putting out is music, in my opinion. Because if you're not a massive fan of music or that genre of music, why would an algorithm feed you Nina Nesbitt? So through lockdown, she was doing quite comical videos, a lot of, showing a lot more of her personality, more of her humour, and those started to really take off. And as you said, using hashtags, and it's a bit of a fickle world because as soon as you do have a video that does quite well, the algorithm kicks in and then wants to support you and that video and then your platform. So are you on their platform, sorry. So it is kind of that age-old question of, but how do I get a viral video? And it's just very simply, look at what content is hot right now, because that is what TikTok is essentially. Like, that is the best platform for comedy. People go on TikTok because they want to see a lot of funny videos, and the younger generation probably want to see like the dances and all that kind of stuff. And I think you have to have a savvy head on your shoulders to know what is current. And if you're tapping into that current sort of thing that's going on, then your video is going to be pushed out through hashtags, through discover pages and all of those things.
Do you think now there's a bit of a fine line between an influencer and an artist? Like, can there just be an artist?
Yeah, we've just having this conversation today. You've read my mind. It's a tough one because I agree with that statement. I think there is a very fine line between an influencer and a musician. And I think what is difficult is musicians who've been around for a while, Nina has, Foxes has, these type of musicians, they were around at a time when influencers didn't exist. And then you've got influencers, generally speaking, a younger generation, who have started online posting sort of, anything, I guess, and then kind of being offered an opportunity in the music industry. And that has blurred the line, I think, between an influencer and a musician. Yeah. Not to say it's wrong, because some really talented influencers have great voices and can write songs, of course. But that is the line of where our artists in particular don't want to cross into that. They don't want to be seen online as an influencer over a musician, because their bread and butter is the music they write. So, but I do also think the more sensible artists understand that I don't think fans look at it that way. If you are releasing music and pushing your music and then you're off, writing a record, but supplying content during that time, your fans still know you're a musician, but you're being sensible and you're tapping into a market that is current whilst your music's not ready. So I think it's a good opportunity for musicians, but I would agree there's a very fine line. If you stop putting music out and you just do all of these types of influencer videos, that is how you're going to be portrayed at the end of the day.
I think the audience also don't care. They don't care if there is that kind of line, because they're not looking at the artist saying like, oh, you've literally now just become an influencer, I'm not going to be a fan of you anymore.
Exactly.
They appreciate the content that's being given because it makes them sort of feel closer to the artist in a way.
How are
it's
you
the
guys
artist that doesn't.
defining an influencer as well? Because to me, an influencer is someone who makes money from their content by selling stuff. But are you describing an influencer here by someone who creates content in order to grow on social media first? Or are you saying someone who has income streams? Actually, I'm interested in the income streams question as well.
Yeah, no, we can go on to that, definitely. I was more talking about, like, I think as soon as you are talking to a camera an artist sees that as an influencer, like vlogging basically. No artists want to vlog.
Yeah.
However, sometimes they were happy to do like a behind the scenes of a tour, which is basically a vlog.
Yeah.
But I think it's always having a way to just connect it to the music somehow, because then you're an artist and you're always being like music first.
Yeah.
Basically.
But that is an interesting question, because I guess fundamentally you would say an influencer is someone, as you said, who, promotes and makes money from that. But I think because of the rise in things like TikTok, there is that section of people who are aiming towards that, who maybe aren't there yet, but they do all that type of content, so they're talking to camera, they're doing the TikTok dances. It's not, certainly not music led, or it's not, led from another creative point as such. It's more latching on to what is current and, doing something that's going to help that take off. So, maybe even the influencer, title is evolving already.
Also, artists make money from social media now.
I was thinking that's become an income stream.
They do brand collaborations. There's like brand placement in music videos, which are mainly put on YouTube. Like everything, well, a lot of money comes from social media, and obviously a lot of opportunities as well, because a brand will want to work with an artist that has an audience. So in a way, they are influencers.
Yeah.
Do you guys do brand deals?
Yes, we do. And that is, again, in the music industry, I think you can't be so narrow-minded to just think you're going to make all of your income from music. Certainly that is, a main source of income. But if you have a certain look, or even if, a brand is just very connected to you and you to them, of course there's brand opportunities. And it doesn't have to be, hey, I'm wearing this hat, like go buy one. It doesn't have to be that, like we've done several brand deals with Nina, and she genuinely loves the brand. So we'll only do that if it's completely right for her. We will not take every brand that comes forward. And some of these brands are fantastic, but to me, again, it's that line of don't cross over and kind of sell your soul because any brand wants to offer you quick money. Because at the end of the day, I just think if you're really real online, your fans stick with that. And I guess it's the Love Island conversation though, isn't it? Like, these people are great. They're great online. They make a fortune doing what they do, but they promote so many different types of brands. I actually think there's a big disconnect there. And if you're promoting hats on one page and then, I don't know, umbrellas on the other page, it's kind of like, well, what do you like? Who are you as a person? And I find that quite disjointed personally.
It's also short-term money.
Yeah.
Because like for an artist, if they just are constantly promoting, the audience lose respect, so then they're not going to buy tickets, they're not going to stream music. Where, as like a management agency, where do you see your artists making the most money at the moment? Because I mean, so many artists are anti-streaming, but is there like a fair amount of money in the industry for streaming, do you believe?
Well, yeah, look, the streaming thing, it's been debated so much over the years, and what artists get paid for streams and things like that. The bottom line is there's more opportunity now to make money, I believe. But what you do earn is a little bit less, because you're not going to earn off one stream what you would earn off one sale back in the day. So you need a lot more streams than you would, sales to be able to earn the same amount. But then there's all of these other ways to make money as well. And also, if you're streaming really well, it just all links in. So, Nina streams very well, for example. We've had 500 million streams on the record. Then, of course, people like radio are going to look at that and think, oh, this record's hot, we'll play the record on radio. So then press see that, so she gets press looks. And then the more press looks she has, brands want to see what she's doing. And everything is connected. And I think it's just very hard for artists who are starting out. That's the problem. If you have a track and it's got less than 1,000 streams, then you're not going to be able to live off that money. It's as simple as that. You're not going to make enough money to get by. But you've just got to play with the other players in this game. And if you love what you do, then you just keep going.
Our debate is also like, people say like, oh, one stream doesn't make anywhere near the amount as one sale. However, getting someone to stream a track is a lot easier than getting someone to just pass over like £10 for a CD. So the chances that especially emerging artists have now, the chance to get discovered is so much more, because in the past you have to get like a CD made, and you have to get into stores. Now they can just get their music streaming, which I think is an amazing opportunity.
It's incredible. And I would argue that more people are discovered because of streaming sites now. Because, you probably aren't going to go and spend £5-10 on a record of someone you don't know back in the day. Where now, people generally speaking will pay their subscriptions to Apple, Deezer, Spotify, whatever it is, and YouTube Music, etc. And then because they've got that access, they'll go on and think, oh, I heard this name the other day. Let's just see if they're on Spotify or on a DSP. And New Music Friday is a perfect example of that. The amount of times I just play New Music Friday and it'll play through and I discover artists and they get that one stream from me. But, they're not just getting one. They're going to get loads of so many other people. And you did not have that access before. So whilst I would argue it's a little bit harder to earn money, on DSPs potentially in the early days, once you do it yourself, once you put your EPs out and you keep going and, you might get a manager and just push that music because you'd be doing that anyways if you love it, then the opportunities are endless in my opinion.
What does a release campaign look like for you guys then? What are your priorities? Like, are you thinking about Spotify playlists and need to be on the biggest Spotify playlist? Are you thinking about social media? What or press, blogs, radio? What is it? Where do you prioritize first, and what are the things that just kind of come anyway?
Well, we're doing this right now. So the record label I mentioned we opened, we have a really great new artist called Oz, and she has just released, there's only 2 singles out at the moment, and we have an EP coming at the end of October. And we're going through the exact same thing. She is from scratch. She doesn't have any followers. She's brand new. She happens to be the songwriter we have on the VDM roster, so she's so talented, and she was always at some point going to do this artist thing. So she's our first release, and we sat down with this very question: how do we break an artist who has nothing behind them? So of course, the budget question is always going to come into play, and we're lucky enough to be partnering with the Orchard, who supply us with small budgets for our artists, which is fantastic, and we use that very wisely. So we plot out a little bit of everything like you said. But to me, honestly, digital marketing is the biggest thing you have to be switched on to for early days for an artist, because that is your main point of discovery. If I'm going to take $2,000, for example, and I've got one place to invest that, I'm going to invest that into digital marketing, because it's just, in 2020, it's the only place somebody's going to find you. Like, yes, we'll do live things, we'll do all of these things in the future, but digital marketing, so have a really strong plan about, for us, focusing on, Instagram is a big platform for us that we look at, and Facebook. I think it's very different with something like Twitter, because the time it takes a tweet to disappear is so quick that you have to invest quite a lot before, or we found anyways, before it's worth kind of doing that. And again, with kind of TikTok, I feel the same. There's a lot of people do influencer marketing on there, which is its own, new thing. We believe very heavily that DSPs are very, very important in the early days, because now radio do look at the streaming numbers. So if we want to get radio, the first thing they're going to do is go, well, this music will be on a platform, so let's go and see how it's doing. You guys would do that if you were looking at an artist or someone, you go and see the backstory. So we pitch to the DSPs ourselves, and we then plot out the digital marketing. For us, we brought on a radio plugger from the start, which it's not something we would necessarily do for all artists, but we strongly felt that her music was radio friendly. And from the word go, we got BBC introducing plays, and she's actually had some rotation in Europe, which is brilliant. So it's about being reactive, because not every artist's music is going to be radio friendly, and certainly not in the early days. So you don't want to spend, that whatever that may be, money wise on a radio plugger if it's going to be a waste of time for the first EP. So I would say it's a bit of everything, but it's using your common sense to go, well, where is the main place she's likely to be discovered, and that's where we'll put the money.
You mentioned digital marketing as well. Is that paid ads? Do you do any of that, or do you just literally do organic? You do paid ads?
Yes.
So what do you find is working for you? What are the mistakes people are making?
Well, I think, honestly, statistics is a big thing, and this kind of touches on the fact that you have to know a little bit of everything. And the digital marketing thing is, we've only just started this label, so this is one of the first times I've been doing it personally. But for the first single, we want to feed Oz out to similar artists. So, we sit down and we say, well, who does your music sound like, even if it's not bang on, and who is very commercially successful, and who is, sort of in the middle of that, because you're going to attract fans from everywhere. So there's, don't just pigeonhole it to like Lana Del Rey because she's massive, or Billie Eilish because she's massive. Like, pigeonhole it with smaller artists as well. So that's what we did, and we came up with like content from Olivia directly. So, yes, we cut things from like the music video visualizers, but we also said to her, well, what will people want to see? And, you know, acapellas we find kind of engage really well. So just her doing a small acapella of the tune or playing it on acoustic guitar. And then we kind of link that into the real song at the end. Like, that's proven to be a really good advert. And then once we put them out, we run them for about 10 days. Anything less than that we find isn't really enough time for people to latch onto it. So 10 days plus. And then we go straight in and look at the statistics. And, you know, you can do that at any window in those 10 days. And you can say, well, you know, Lana Del Rey fans actually aren't really switching on to this. So let's maybe change that demographic and put something else in there. Or that video doesn't seem to be doing well, so let's upload something else. And you've just got to be on the statistics because, you know, I'm not the world's greatest at digital marketing, and I'm very fortunate that we've got other people that, you know, help us with that as well in-house. But it's also not hard if you haven't got that access. Just look at what fans are actually saying, because that's what your statistics are. You know, if the fan isn't engaging, that is all you need to know. Change it up somehow and go back in another day or two and have a look at it again.
We actually always say it's the content that actually really matters. It's like 80% content. And then a lot of people say, well, my targeting was off. Or maybe it's the wrong demographic. Actually, when you switch up the content, that really works.
I mean, the main response is they don't work. They don't work. I think it's because the whole idea of having to like pay on a platform feels kind of wrong. However, you can reach the perfect audience, as in the past. And I mean, even with influencers, you're not always in control of that data.
Yeah.
Whereas with paid media, it's absolutely amazing because like you can retarget those people. That audience is yours to have. And then future releases, future content, like you can just completely own that audience to retarget them constantly, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think, you know, we haven't yet looked at influencer marketing personally on the label side, but that was my biggest problem with it. Like, somebody else's audience is going to engage with this, and then we don't necessarily have access to that back end data. So how do we utilize that moving forward? So I would completely agree.
Yeah, we've actually stepped away from influencer marketing quite a bit. And the reason is, like you said, like, you don't own that data to a point where the best you'll get is if it's a story, they'll show you the swipe up, they'll show you like how many clicks it got, which is amazing. But so you can see how many people click to Spotify, for example. But that might not always translate into direct streams.
Yeah.
Because people might stream for 20 seconds and be like, no, I'm actually not feeling it.
Yeah.
And I think influencer marketing is a bit of a buzzword, and people like the idea of a huge influencer sharing their music, but is it really authentic? Does it look good on their platform? Does it look realistic? I'm not sure. I think the best way to do it is like collaborating on content, which we're seeing so much more, especially obviously musicians, but even creators and musicians coming together. I think that's like the way forward with influencer marketing.
Yeah, I agree. One of the best things we ever did was for influencer marketing was we did, and artists can do this themselves completely for free. We allowed big YouTube channels to use the music royalty free in the background of their vlogs and videos and things like that. Then we went on to the music videos, and then the comments were just filled with, I came here from this person's vlog, so-and-so's vlog. I can't, like, this is the theme tune to their vlog. And then people were Shazamming it. And that's not, the influencer marketing is not you not paying. It's kind of just giving up the royalties basically, and it's free reach. Anyway. That for us was the closest to influencer marketing where it really took off an artist.
And I do think, you know, emerging artists especially, they often have no budget or are willing to spend their own money, and it's not very much. So I think it's so easy for someone to go, well, I could put some ads on, and it suggests, it sort of recommends what you might get, like result wise. Or I could spend this little bit of money on an influencer who has, you know, 100,000 followers, whatever. I can see why an emerging artist would be attracted to that. But again, it goes back to the fact of, if an influencer markets anything, then how is it right for your brand? And it's always got to be your brand and what's right for you. And it is the DIY way of doing it. DIY, yes. But as you said before, build it yourself, keep the statistics, because over time, everything grows. You know, we're only on the second single with Oz, and we're seeing the streams fly earlier than the first single. Of course, that's what we would expect. We're seeing the playlist support grow, but more importantly, the digital marketing. You know, we've got the stats from the ads in the last single, and it's just all about building. And, you know, I'm excited now about the next two singles because I can see how this one's built, and I know that with another two, but with the EP release, like it's just gonna keep going, and you've done that all on your own as well, and it's exciting, and you can just use it to keep building, which is the most important thing.
Yeah. So as a manager, how involved are you with like branding and like artist identity in a way, because that's such a huge part of an artist now. Like people fall in love with the personality so much. Do you have a bit of control over that, or is that all down to the artist? You give them complete freedom?
Well, we really tend to pick artists that they know exactly who they are, basically. So Nina knows exactly what engages on her platform and who she is. Oz is very similar. They're very different, but they know exactly what they are. And they're good examples because they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. You know, Nina's had success, Oz hasn't. But that, in my opinion, is the best way to work because it's their true identity. And I don't really believe in putting something online if it's not real, because things change. And if you're putting something online because you think it's current, and then that's not you in, you know, a year's time and all the trends have changed, what happens then? You know, who are you in a year's time? So, I mean, likewise, I don't think every artist has a very strong identity. You know, like someone like Lady Gaga obviously has this great, you know, intense thing going on online, but not every artist has to have something as branded as that, I believe. And I guess Lewis Capaldi's a great example, because his branding all comes down to humour. You know, it's not about how he looks or anything he portrays. It's more about like the humour he's putting online. So yeah, our artists, generally speaking, know what they are, and that really makes life easier because it's a collaboration. You know, the manager and the artist work completely together. And if we want to put some content out, you know, I'll say to Oz, well, how do we do this as Oz? You know, how do we make this look like you? And of course, I suggest things as well. But she needs to have the confidence to say, yes, that's me, or no, that isn't, because it's her artistry at the end of the day. You know, of course, it's ours. We work so closely. But she is the artist, and I think we really like to give our artists the chance to be who they are and put that version of themselves online or out to the world.
Yeah.
You mentioned about a big producer collaboration. Was it with Zed? Did you mention
The
that?
Foxes,
Yes.
yeah.
So is that a significant way to break an artist as well? Because that's admittedly not something I know a lot about, which is these big collaborations. Like I remember I discovered like Mike Posner from the Seed, Took a Pill in Ibiza and things like that. Is that a good way to promote artists, do you think?
Definitely is. And it's something actually with Oz, we're already thinking about who can she collaborate with at the right time. And also things, you know, I would never rule out things like if you're going to release a song, does it lend itself to a stripped version, like an acoustic version? And does it lend itself to a remix version? Because there are some huge remixers out there as who can also help in, you know, the dance world and clubs and things like that. And acoustic, you know, you sit on completely different playlists. So one song actually, you know, let's say it's just a pop song or a rock song, they'll get all that playlist support. But if you release an acoustic version, all of a sudden that song gets a little bit more support. And then you've got a remix, so it gets a bit more. And then you build yourself and...
triple income as well.
Well, that's it. You know, it's just... how can you maximise on this one song? And collaborations are, I do think in this day and age, are actually key. But again, find the ones that are right for you.
I guess it's Sam Smith and Disclosure as well. That whole thing,
of course.
that's how it broke him.
I was going to ask, well, what is a producer looking for the collaboration? Like, because you've got this smaller artist, say, and you're over here doing your thing, everything's going well. Is there an exchange of money? Do you pay them? Do you just find a really good track that they would maybe want to remix? How does it work? How do you get in contact with them and offer them something?
It's, you know, that access, of course. I mean, we're fortunate that we have a lot of contacts in terms of the business we've built, of course, but if you're up and coming, you know, you arguably are on the back foot, so you don't, you know, have necessarily as much to give to someone bigger than you. But honestly, talent and good music will get you everywhere you need to be. I really, really believe that. You know, Oz is a great example. She is brand new and has some brilliant producers working on this EP. And that's testament to her talent, because for 2 years before that, she wrote songs for other people, and she's so passionate about music. She spent a little while doing that. And got to know all of these producers. And these people wouldn't work on her record if they didn't know her, and they would charge her, you know, a hefty fee. But they're like, God, you are so talented. Why haven't you got an artist project? And then, you know, when the time came to say, well, she'd like to do this, and the people she'd like to do this with is you, they were so interested in getting on board. And again, it's to be an artist, it's more than about just writing songs and putting them out. It really is. There's so many different ways you can make contact, and you know, you guys will know it is an industry just connecting, and the more people you know, the more chance you've got of finding that person that you might need to, you know, access to the management or the publisher, and it just gets easier the further in you get. But if you're up and coming, I'm not being funny, but hitting people up on Instagram, artists like artists, they love music. And if you've got a great song, DM them on Instagram. They might just listen to it. And my whole thing when I was a nobody, like, and not earning any money from music, was never like sell yourself short. Like, why won't we go for the slot with Ed Sheeran? Why don't I put you forward for this support slot with Busted at 30,000 people? Like, of course we got knocked back a million times on other things, but when it pays off, people go, "You're joking. How did you
They'll probably
get
tell
that?"
you you got lucky as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Always the case, isn't it?
Well, it was the same people that told us that I was never going to make a career out of it are the ones who are like,
Look at you
"So
now."
how did you do that? How did you get into this?" And I'm like, oh God, it doesn't happen overnight. Nothing does. Like, hard work and determination is obviously the key.
It would be good to talk about live then, because obviously the first band you worked with basically broke because of live.
Yes.
Do you think it still has the same power today?
I do think nothing beats a live show personally, and I do come from that era. To be honest, I actually think fans of this day and age do as well, because there are artists that I've seen live who, at the time, I guess, didn't get radio. Like, I went to see an artist called Black Bear in America at Red Rocks in Denver, which is like the dream venue. It was on my bucket list, and had the opportunity to go and see a show there, and it happened to be Black Bear. I didn't know that much about him at the time. He's like a US rapper, and he didn't get any radio at the time. Now he gets Capital, and it's a different thing. But every single person in that 10,000 capacity venue was a DSP fan. Like, they found him because of Spotify and stuff. So, and they were going nuts, and it was very interesting to watch. They were all like kind of teens and that. It was funny. But live has so much power, because that is where you see an artist doing the thing they love the most. Yes, they've written that song, but you put them on a stage, and how they've, reworked that song for live, or what the drummer does, or what the bass player does, or what the artist is playing or dancing or doing, that brings a whole new element to that music, in my opinion. So I think live's really, really important. But again, you've got to be realistic. There's only so much you can be on the road before you do have to be paying attention to the music and, writing the next record. And it comes in waves. With Nina, we were drip feeding the singles before the album release, and then we were doing shows here and there. Then she was having support slots, and then before we knew it, it was headline tour, UK, US, Australia, second run of those things. And it felt like for maybe 18 months, she probably didn't write that much. She's really good. She'll write in her downtime, but she didn't write for the second record, the second record with Cook and Vinyl. She did not have the time. You're on a tour bus, you're getting up late in the day because you've getting in so late the night before, then you're doing some promo, playing your show, then you're getting back on the bus. It's relentless. But for me, live is it's just a more exciting version of the music. Or that's how I think it should be anyways.
How do artists get those slots, do you think? Do you need like a good EPK? Do you actually need to get a booking agent?
I mean, an agent's obviously going to make it a lot easier. And you know what? I know a lot of artists who get an agent before they get management. And I actually know a lot of artists who get lawyers before that. So never rule out getting a lawyer as the first port of call, because lawyers are connected to so many managers, as are publishers and live agents and whatnot. But, my first band didn't have a live agent, and we got plenty. And that was just my determination of looking at what was touring in the Northeast, especially Scotland, Manchester, kind of the northern areas. What's touring? How do I find a contact? Because 9 times out of 10, honestly, if you Google something, you'll find something. Yeah. And I think people underestimate that. Oh, I'm never going to know them. They're at a major label. And it's like, maybe just have a little look online. And I would just hit up everybody, and I would just contact as many people as I could. And then you start obviously making friends in the industry, and it gets a little bit easier. You just can't rule out that DIY nature of it, and that grassroots kind of, let's just ask somebody this question. You just never know what the answer's going to be.
Yeah.
I actually found a really, I've never told you this, so a way of finding contact details is on YouTube channels about sections. So I found Kygo's manager's email address on the about section. So for artists listening, one, please don't bombard Kygo's manager's email address. But secondly, look on the about section of YouTube channels.
Especially as they keep it as the original quite a lot, which is usually like either the artist themselves or the manager. They don't look back and think, oh, I should change that to my...
Yeah.
But I do that as well, because I can hit up people now and obviously go, oh, I know you publish so-and-so, do you know the management? But my first point of call is always, you know what, it might just be on the about section on Facebook. Like,
Facebook's
it actually might be. So kind of instead of bothering people first, I'll always have a little look for it. Maybe it's not as hard as I used to back in the day, but yeah, there's more online than people. Like, someone emailed me the other day and was like, oh, I Googled you and found this email address. And I was like, well, I'm glad the right email address is coming up. But that's a bit, also, I was like, oh, didn't know I was that available
Where
online.
is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said as well, Instagram DM, I think artists are worried about not being professional, but it's like, that's the easiest way to reach someone. And it shows that you're actually being like personal and it's not just a copy paste that like a lot of people do.
And also, I'm not being funny, but like, we're kind of the middlemen in this. So, you know, an artist wants to work with an artist. Oh, well, I'll speak to my manager. They'll speak to their manager. They'll feed back. Sometimes you get better results if the artist just goes, hey, do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Genuinely, because they're people at the end of the day. It's not all business all of the time. You know, Nina has made friends with artists and then collaborated with them. And, you know, Oz is the same. Fox's is the same. Like, those genuine connections often bring about the best collaborations.
Completely agree. I think it's a good place to end it.
Good place to end it.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Is there any ways that people can find you online? Instagram?
Yes. Well, VDM Music, so vdmmusic.com is the website, and that's where you'll find pretty much everything about our company. So,
cool. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to give it a like. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.